For the past 2 years while I was studying astrology, there was one major placement, or I guess you would say planet, I think it's an asteroid actually, that really, really influenced my entire career, I guess you would say, as an astrologer, and that would be Chiron. And I wanted to discuss the placement of Chiron and Gemini as a podcast, and for something that I could obviously put on YouTube, because Chiron and Gemini, it's a really big pain in the ass. And the more that I began to research astrology, and the more that I began to learn about this planet and what exactly it entitled, it was just very, very fascinating to me to look at how the energy played out in other people's lives and how it was affecting them. Our generation, which every generation or every couple of years actually changes sign. So a lot of people, when I say our generation, I mean 1984 to 88. Anybody beyond that, like a lot of my friends that were born in 89 and stuff, they have Chiron and Cancer, which is very, very different. And guys, I promise I will cover that one as well. But I wanted to talk about Chiron and Gemini because mainly, we are just about to close this one off. And by that, I mean that we are going through our final Chiron square. Now, the thing about Chiron is it starts as this asteroid, right? And it begins in your natal chart as a transit, which starts as an opening square between Chiron and transit Chiron. For most people around my age, which is 28, I was born in 88, a lot of the Chiron-related stuff was, it started around the time that we were like 5 or 6. So just like you would go any planet in your natal chart, you would do the same with Chiron. It can fall anywhere between your 1st and your 12th house, and it can have some shitty-ass implications that by your final Chiron square you should be working on. With this one being in Gemini, it rules communication and knowledge. And the original wound, like I said, would have started around the time that you were like 5 or 6. Then there was an opposition, and that for me, I do believe, was in 2001. I went through like Solar Fire, which is a astrology program. It took me forever to figure out the original dates of all this stuff, but I wanted to know. I wanted to look back to those times in my life and figure out what exactly was going on. And it was very, very interesting when I did. I don't really want to go into detail about my placement too much, just because it is very, very personal. I have Chiron in my 8th house of my zodiac chart, which rules some really, really messed up stuff. It's just a very dark area of the natal chart. It's ruled by Pluto. So think Scorpio energy, I guess you could say, in that area. And it rules sex, death, rebirth, taboo subjects, occultism. So even being scarred by things like psychics and stuff. I've touched on this before. I never had any luck with any psychics or anybody within the occult field that I actually went to for advice, and I've kind of began to realize that it's still pretty much that way. The thing with Chiron and Gemini is that wherever this little tricky ass bastard sits in your natal chart, pretty much you have to become your own expert in the field, in that area. You have to do a lot of research so that you can communicate and learn to defend yourself in a sense, not take the advice of other people. When I think of the song, I heard it through the grapevine, I think about Gemini, because Gemini is, although very good at communication, they have a tendency to listen to what other people are saying and take that to heart and use that information as though it should be their information, I guess you could say, when really they need to be finding their own information in these fields. So say you were to have Chiron in the 2nd house in Gemini, you would be wounded within the area of your finances. And a lot of people with this placement actually experience abandonment as a child, mainly their fathers. They were abandoned in some sort of way. There wasn't a lot of financial help in that area. And you go on to kind of live through your Chiron cycle until you get to your final Chiron square, which should be coming up, or actually it could be done as well. And that's when you really begin to learn how to work with that energy and become a wounded healer, as opposed to somebody that's wounded. So that would be what astrology is for me. Because of that area being ruling occultism and stuff like that, astrology, tarot card readings, a lot of energy healing type stuff that I do, crystals, I have a list. It's all me showing my energy, like my Chiron, like energy and my knowledge in that area, as opposed to being unknowledged, which is why I spent so long, instead of like studying college and stuff like that, studying other subjects, with my Chiron being in the 8th. It's funny to me, like this was all, when I was doing my research, it was just very fascinating that I went through and educated myself in these areas. Like sex falls within your 8th house, and I worked within the porn industry, and not as a porn star, but as a writer and a softcore film, I collaborated on softcore films and created titles and did voiceover scripts and a bunch of other stuff that you can see on like DirecTV. Basically, I was educating myself in that area. Then once I went into astrology and metaphysics and stuff like that, I was basically educating myself within the occult realm. And people with this placement are like very big on like occultism and can be like occultists pretty much. So that's pretty cool. If you had Chiron, say like in your 4th house, you would be wounded on regards to what you kind of viewed or were like you led to believe, I guess, home would be like. So your home situation could have been, in a sense, non-traditional. That's not a good way of putting it. More so like your worldview and what you were raised around would not have necessarily been what was right for you. That's a good way to put it. And as you get older, like you become better at like learning what is right for you and what it does mean to have a family and what it does mean to have a home. And you just really educate yourself in this area. A lot of people with Chiron in the 4th become great parents, like incredible parents, just because they had such a fucked up view of it as children, pretty much. What is another one? Chiron in the 6th house is an incredible one as well. I know somebody with this placement. He's actually sitting inside my house right now, and he probably would not want me to talk about this, but I don't really care, because it's definitely one of the ones that I've been able to study firsthand with my own 2 eyes. And within the 6th house, it's your everyday life and your health. And I know that he's had numerous health issues that were mainly caused by doctors giving him false information or false, like not the right treatments, I guess you could say. And people within this area like are very, very known to become like healers within like the health field. Actually, they just take on normally an alternative approach. And that's a big one too. With Chiron, you normally take on an alternative approach to these areas. You take on your own belief system. They say that wherever you have Chiron is where you, well, how do I put it? You feel so different from the rest of the world that it causes you setbacks and like problems in life. But mainly pain, to be honest. Like Chiron, for me, when I look at it and I like read people's charts, I'm like, ouch, ouch, that's an ouch area. Be careful there. Tread lightly. It might hurt in that area for that person. It's a good way to put it. But with Gemini, like the big thing is really just educating yourself, becoming knowledgeable. I don't know if everybody in the world had to experience this, but I know that I did. Like as a kid, one of the main like songs we had to sing like in kindergarten and stuff like that was a song called Knowledge is Power. And it's very interesting to me to look back at that now, because I'm like, holy crap, we all were supposed to become knowledged. And sadly, we just weren't. Not in that area. So this is a very, very interesting placement with Chiron and Gemini. Just educate yourselves. Look to where you have Chiron in the natal chart. It looks like a little dude with like a mohawk, kind of. He's a colorful little guy. At this point, you're probably either almost done with your Chiron, like closing Chiron square, or you are just coming into it, or potentially you are already done with it. So if you look into your natal chart, you can definitely see where that would be and see where it has taken you. Look into that area and see like what you have educated yourself on, what you have become an expert at. And the big thing is, don't listen to anybody else. People will still try to like steer you wrong in this direction is a good way to put it. They might try to steer you in the wrong direction in this area still. It will be something that you'll probably constantly struggle with because your view of it will be so different from everybody else. Keep your lungs clean. Don't be like me and be a smoker because it's not good. No, I have Gemini in my 8th house, so it's just really not good for me to smoke in general, as the 8th house is the house of undoing. It's where you can look to clues for your own death. So yeah, I shouldn't be a smoker. But no, Chiron and Gemini people should be, honestly. If you are experiencing like nervousness issues or issues with like your lungs in general, it probably has something to do with Chiron. And you can look for clues as to what went down with Chiron by looking at where you have Mercury placed in your chart as well. whoever that is, it aided in whatever kind of wounding it is that you are experiencing. So yeah, that is Chiron and Gemini. It's a very, very fun thing to look into for like psychological and like spiritual growth. I figured I would record a podcast on that because I was going to record a video, but I didn't have time today. So that's about it. Chiron and Gemini.